Okay, now we'll be serious.
When most people see a food item labeled as GMO in a grocery store, they usually try to avoid it. In fact, many specifically go out of their way to buy non-GMO foods. Every year, genetically modified organisms have become more and more prevalent in our food and medicine. As a bio major at Purdue University, I've done extensive research on this topic, and I aim to expel the myths that many hold about GMOs. As a result, in this presentation, I will first go over the common misconceptions, refute those common misconceptions, then talk about the benefits and impacts of GMOs. So let's talk about one myth of GMO. So there was a study that was conducted by the Public Acceptance of Agricultural Biotechnologies, which aims to find out what beliefs and myths people around the world have about GMOs. In this study particularly, they created 14 focus groups of about 10 people in various countries and held a 2-hour discussion about their general belief on the topic. They found several misbeliefs and misconceptions that people have about this topic. So one of them is that many people believe that GMOs are unnatural and they push nature like beyond their limits. But in reality, humans have actually been selectively breeding all kinds of plants and animals for hundreds of years, meaning that the majority of our plants and animals now, even our pets, are already genetically modified. So this is kind of a factor that doesn't really make sense. Another myth that many people hold are that GMOs are bad for human health. However, according to a report by the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, there's no actual concrete evidence that link GMOs to negative health effects. There's a lot of cautious testing that goes through when a GMO is approved. In fact, on average, it takes around 13 years for a GMO to actually be approved. And there's only around 10 crops currently that are actually GMO approved, showing that, there's a lot of research and a lot of extensive studies, even more than organic plants. A third common misconception that people have is that it negatively impacts the environment. Many fear that animals who feed on GMOs, such as pigs, cows, chickens, stuff we eat, they fear that this meat will be tainted if they eat GMOs. They're also afraid of the death of pollinators, such as bees, who pollinate themselves on these plants. However, studies have shown that bee populations are actually killed by like many other factors, such as pests or disease or inadequate diet. And even the organic crops itself, the ones that are considered organic, actually do have some amounts of GMO when the meat was fed. In addition, when the meat in the pigs who ate the GMO plants, when their DNA was tested, they found no traces of GMO in it. So now let's go on to the benefits. So obviously, it does actually have positive environmental impacts, not negative. One major one is that it helps save water. There's 2 traits that help do that. One is drought resistance, which helps obviously retain water in the plant when there's major amounts of drought. And the other thing is water retention in the soil. So some of these plants are genetically modified such that they can retain the water in the soil itself so that you don't need to irrigate as often. According to a study by GMO Answers, GMO crops have also led to an additional 306 million tons of soybeans, 549 million tons of corn, and 36 million tons of cotton lint, and 15 million tons of canola. This is due to the fact that these crops are much more efficient and require a much smaller amount of land. So they actually increase the productivity. They also aid in disease resistance. A peer-reviewed article by Plant Physiology actually goes in depth on recent breakthroughs in genetic engineering in plants. So obviously disease and contagions in modern day agriculture kills all sorts of plants every day. So genome editing will actually allow breeders to specifically edit out or add segments of DNA, which removes this disease or mutation that causes this loss. Attaching these specific receptors allows for a much more increased level of disease resistance. So aside from the agricultural benefits, it also helps produce cleaner biofuels. So there was a nature.com article by Miriam Sticklin that studies this exact topic. So biofuels are extremely important for fuel sustainability and to stray away from using petroleum, right? So at the moment, biofuels capabilities are very limited because it's created from the conversion of starches or sugars. But there's new studies that say converting cellular biomass is actually an option that's much more efficient. However, since that process is very long and inefficient, or long and expensive, that's where genetic engineering comes into play, because we can genetically engineer these plants to produce these cellulases so that this problem would be solved. So, in truth, GMOs don't actually negatively affect the human health and actually have several environmental benefits, which would make it a great replacement for crops in the future. So, next time we instinctively dismiss a GMO labeled product in a grocery store, maybe we should take a moment to consider the fact that it's actually benefiting the environment while coming at no health cost to the consumer.